Joining me tonight from the White House, Homeland Security Advisor Tom Bossert on the North Lawn. Tom, thanks for being here. You said today that some of the reports are lagging what is actually happening on the ground. Has the dynamic changed from what we're hearing?
Thanks, Brett, for having me. And no, that dynamic never changes in terms of reporting, but the dynamic on the ground always does change. And so, as an example, I briefed earlier this morning the number of hospitals that were open. I briefed it and updated it again this afternoon. And then, as an example, I'll brief it now. 51 now of the 69 hospitals on the island are open, and 41 of the 48 dialysis centers are open. This is one of the key critical factors for us, as you know, Brett, and it's something that has changed throughout the day. And so old reporting or old B-roll footage running from earlier today tends to give a bad impression. It wasn't wrong at the time it was recorded. It just ends up being dated and inaccurate. So that's the challenge for all of us.
Yeah, and it's not just Democrats, though, Tom, who are criticizing a little bit of the effort. Here's Senator Rubio talking about what he's hearing and seeing on the ground.
Basically, there's no communications, there's no power, and there's no fuel, and no truckers. And so you've got these containers sitting at the port, and they can't move the aid. So even as the aid comes in, they're having trouble distributing it because they don't have a way to distribute it, they don't know where to distribute it, and they don't have it. Some of it needs to be refrigerated like insulin, and there's no enough power for the generators to protect that.
Is that fair?
No, so in other words, it's not entirely accurate. So understandably, he's pointing out the problem and the challenge of getting commodities into an island, but he's suggesting there's no fuel, there's no water. Anytime you use terms like no or always or never, you end up being wrong. I think the idea here is that there's quite a bit of fuel, there's quite a bit of food and water. Our challenge now is getting it into the middle of the island, to the mountainous areas, and to the people who need it. But that's a logjam that we're breaking regularly, and we're making a lot of progress here. So we're getting in front of this curve, not behind it.
You waited until, and we heard in John's piece, the governor of Puerto Rico made the request to change the Jones Act. You just didn't think that was necessary before that request, correct?
That's correct. It wasn't even a necessity at the time that the president waived it. The idea of waiving it was to make sure that it didn't become an impediment as we move forward. In fact, up until the time of the waiver, we had American ships providing American supplies to American citizens, and we were outstripping in terms of our capacity the needs of the island. What we ran into was a land-based distribution logjam. So the shipping and cargo waiver issue wasn't the primary impediment. It was misunderstood by some, and that remains the case. But I think the idea of the Jones Act was a little distraction.
I know you're deploying the U.S. military, and the military is involved. A three-star general, as we heard, is becoming a part of this operation, but not leading it overall?
So what we did was we had a four-star admiral, in fact, Brett, in charge, based off the Kearsarge through Irma. That four-star Navy commander was leading the effort and commanding and marshaling resources, with Northern Command and NORAD backing it from their combatant command inside the North American domestic space. What we just did, though, was see a transition, perhaps misunderstood by some, to a three-star brigadier out of Fort Sam Houston. And the idea there was that three-star provides the command structure to support forward operations. His one-star is on the ground, and that one-star general has the command structure, the support, and the authority to command all ground forces to break these log jams and push commodities to people in need.
Last thing, Tom, and I know what you're saying, and I hear what you're saying about what's being deployed there and what's happening, but our Geraldo Rivera is on the ground, and he's talking to people like this lady about what she's seeing and feeling.
It's completely going crazy over here. People are fighting for water. They're fighting for diapers, for pampers, for anything they can find. We don't have water, running water. We don't have electricity. We need help. We need a lot of help, and we're not, honestly, there hasn't been any help coming for us yet.
So, I mean, that's her experience. So what do you tell those people tonight? And obviously they'll be seeing these images and hearing from Geraldo and others on the ground.
Yeah, it's terrible conditions for a lot of people in need of a lot of support right now. I tell them that the federal government is on the way with increasing numbers of materials and people to help distribute those materials. I tell them that Governor Rosello is strongly in command of the island. Fortunately, we don't have any reports of massive unrest or civil disturbance in a way that's a loss of control over the island. That's a testament to the law enforcement on the island, but also to the National Guard troops that were deployed before and during and after the storm. What I tell her is that her heart and soul comes through in that plea for help. The president hears it, and the president has directed all the resources of the United States of America to help its citizens in Puerto Rico.
Tom, we appreciate your time tonight. Any updates, feel free to come back.
Thank you, Brett.